This program is sponsored by Auckland City Council. 9,461. The number of businesses in the Central Business District. 78,480. The number of people who work in those businesses.
We are the fourth largest economy in the world in terms of purchasing power parity. The GDP is at about $700 billion. We have the sixth largest foreign exchange reserves in the world, which are about $212 billion today. And India will be the third largest economy after US and China by 2035. That's the Goldman Sachs BRICS report. And India ranks today number 2 globally in terms of 80 Kearney's Foreign Direct Investment FDI Confidence Index. Now, these are all very, very important statements made by global companies in terms of how they look at India. Let's see what Thomas Friedman, who wrote the book The World is Flat, had to say about India. He said, if you want to know what India feels like, take a champagne bottle, shake it for a couple of hours, and then take the cork off. You do not want to get in the way of the cork. India, I'll just touch upon a few strategic advantages. We are the world's largest democracy. You saw me joining issue on the matter of democracy and its importance. Yesterday, I don't want to belabor the point. The second largest English-speaking population in the world, high engineering and technical manpower. I had a friend of mine who runs a company in China and in India. He said, Ram, I've just come back from my factory near Shanghai. Out of the 500 people I employ there are just 2 who can speak English. He says, and I've just gone to my factory in Chennai in Tamil Nadu. He says, out of the 250 people I employ there are precisely 2 who cannot speak English. For an English-speaking nation like New Zealand, that's a very significant competitive and strategic advantage. Strong judiciary based on British jurisprudence. Our legal system can be faster, but we have a legal system. Intellectual property, Copyright Act, Trademarks Act are all robust and in place. And I think that's a very, very important advantage vis-a-vis China. Independent media and freedom of speech. The chairman of Microsoft can come to India and criticize our Prime Minister or Finance Minister. I would invite Bill Gates to try and do that in China. Large domestic market. Effective and easily trainable workforce, low wage costs, and this is sweet news. 70% of the population is below 35 years of age. 500 million people are below 21 years of age. This is a huge consuming class which is going to come into the market tomorrow, and it's a fantastic opportunity even in terms of domestic consumption. And proactive government policies are making India move on a rapid path. India's snapshot. India is among only 3 countries in the world to have built its own supercomputer. We are just not about camels and elephants. 1/5 of Fortune 500 companies have set up core R&D facilities in India. 11 out of every 12 diamonds in the world are polished in India. Can I have a glass of water, please, if you don't mind? We are one of the 7 countries in the world to have built a car indigenously. And a car priced at about $2,000 to $2,000 US dollars, $2,000 to $2,200 US dollars is likely to roll out, which is an Indian car. And 1 out of every 6 2-wheelers in the world are manufactured in India. So I would say 1 out of every 12 2-wheelers in the world is made by the Bajaj Group. 220 of the Fortune 500 companies source software from India. That number would have gone up to 300 or 350 now. India is among only 6 countries in the world to have satellite launch capabilities. 1 out of every 10 new mobile users is an Indian. And India has a huge entertainment industry, Bollywood, and we have 300 channels and 500 million television viewers. So this is just a snapshot I wanted to give you of tomorrow's India. Abundant natural resources, New Zealand will be happy to know that we are the largest producer of milk in the world. Only 91 million tons per annum. But we don't know what to do with all that milk. We are very poor in food processing, we are very poor in refrigeration, and we are not able to take that milk and convert it into value-added products and sell it to the world. Sugarcane, tea, we are the largest producers in the world. Fruit, vegetables, wheat and rice, we are the second largest in the world. And we have large reserves of manganese, chromium, coal, bauxite and iron ore. And these are all strong strategic advantages. In the future, the battle will not be for dollars. The battle will be for energy resources and natural resources. And India is fortunately in a reasonably strong position except for oil. What can India mean to the world? The I in India stands for intellectual ability, which is IQ and IT. The Pentium chip, do you have any idea who invented it, who created it? Within Intel? It was done by Vinod Dham. Sun Microsystems, a proud American company, the co-founder was Vinod Khosla. McKinsey has been run by Rajat Gupta for many years as its chairman. Standard Chartered Bank by Rana Talwar, Victor Menezes has run Citibank, and you must drink a lot of Pepsi because Indira Nui is the chairman of Pepsi. That's the intellectual capital that India is offering to the world. And the word IT has been thrust upon us, and this is a very important point. The N in India stands for a never say die spirit. When you come to India as a foreigner, the first thing that you see when you come out of the Bombay airport are the slums around you. You see poorly clad children, you see street children, you see beggar children. I would say look into the eyes of every beggar child in India. You will not see an unhappy face in India. What you will see in that face is optimism, what you will see is a confidence on the future, what you will see there is a hope. Yes, we have a lot of poverty. If you are a nation of 1.1 billion people, that is 1,100 million people, and I'm in a country with a population of 4 million when I'm speaking this, there is going to be poverty. But we have cut our poverty. In the last 20 years, we have cut it down by half. 52% of our people were below the poverty line. In 20 years, we have brought it down to about 25% at this point in time, and it is decreasing rapidly. We are a democracy, and we are innovative. The Apple iPod, which is there in many of our pockets, was created in India by Apple. The latest SAP systems are being created in India. The latest Microsoft software is being made in India. And today, a hell of a lot of design and engineering work for Boeing or Airbus or anyone else is getting done in India. And we are today an awakened India, an India ready to take its place in the world, and this is a new India for you, ladies and gentlemen. The reforms process, creating a great climate for business and growth. Licensing has been abolished in most areas. Phased liberalization is happening on the FDI front. Convertibility on current account, partially on capital account, dramatic customs duty and income tax reductions. There was a time when income tax was 97.5%. I mean, the government was saying, please don't declare your income. Now it is down to a comfortable 30%, and there is a tremendous amount of compliance that has gone up. Imposition of a uniform VAT is a very important step. Creation of special economic zones. I think that's a very important strategic step we have taken. We have relied on the China model and a very strong commitment to reforms. And today's government has a very strong focus on both the infrastructure sector and the social sector. Steady economic reforms implementation, if I may just draw your attention, increasing foreign investment. What you see there, from about $16.8 billion in the 5 years 97 to 2001, today we are at $42 billion, with $21 billion coming out of FII, foreign institutional investors, and about $21 billion coming out of FDI, which is foreign direct investment. Import duties, which were at about 45%, have now come down to 12.5%. That's a big change in India. Corporate tax rates, I mean, those of you who do not want to make an investment on the ground today should look at opportunities in India even from an import perspective. Corporate tax rates, which were at about 75% once upon a time, are down to about 35% now. Foreign trade, which was at about $50 billion in terms of imports, is $107 billion now, and exports from $36 billion has climbed to $80 billion. And along with that, corporate performance has improved manifold. In terms of net sales, it's gone up to about $500 billion, and 5.5% is the profit after tax, which was at about 2% earlier. So in 5 years, corporate performance has improved in terms of profitability, and that's good news for the stock markets. Sound economic fundamentals. Interest rates, which used to be at 20% once upon a time, that was in 1991-92, before the liberalization process, are now down to about 10 to 11%. This is a prime lending rate, but if you're a good corporate, you can get money at about 8%, 8.5%. But that again is nowhere near what's happening in other ASEAN countries or in developed countries. Inflation has been kept stable at about 5%. Savings rate have increased from 21% to about 30% right now. And foreign exchange reserves, in 1992, we had to take our sovereign gold and send it on a plane to London to get foreign exchange reserves from the Bank of London. Today, we have got $212 billion of foreign exchange reserves, and that's a huge advantage. Consumer markets are booming. Very clearly, there is a big pot of gold there. Please come, have a piece. 12,000 two-wheelers sold every day. It's good news for us. 180 million mobile youth subscribers only. In 2005, only 45 million Indians used domestic air travel. India produces only 3 million graduates, 700,000 postgraduates, and about 200,000 engineering graduates every year. That's a huge intellectual potential that we are unleashing on the world. And 300 million middle-class Indians will be spending close to $420 billion in the next 4 years. And next 5 years, if I look at the projection, car sales are expected to grow by 150%, telecom subscribers by 150%, power generation by 100%, healthcare by 100%, processed foods, and that's important news for New Zealand, 80%, color television by 75%. So the growth scenario going forward is also very attractive. I just did a little comparison between the two economies, India and New Zealand. GDP on purchasing power parity, while New Zealand is $107 billion, India is at $4.1 trillion. It's a huge economy, and the size and scale cannot even be imagined. GDP per capita, New Zealand is obviously way ahead at $26,000. We are at a poor $3,800. GDP real growth is at about 9.2% against New Zealand's 1.5%. And like Mr. Prestovis said, manufacturing is growing at about 12%, but population below poverty line is still 25%. Our exports are very large. Exports plus imports together are about $300 billion. FDI per annum is $13 billion. Inflation at 5.3%. And this is good news. Investment to GDP ratio in China is about 42%. That is, if you want GDP growth, roughly 42% is the investment you have to make. It's an investment-led GDP growth. In India, the difference is it's a consumption-led GDP. So when you invest $29, you get a GDP of $100, and that's a very, very important information. Agriculture is about 20% of the economy, industry and construction 20%, services about 60%. While in New Zealand's case, I'm sorry, the figure is erroneous, it's about 8% in terms of agriculture, about 24% in terms of industry, and 60% in terms of services. And just to give you an idea, I mean, if the roadway system is 3.38 million kilometers, the railway system is 63,230 kilometers, just to give you an idea of the size and scale. India differences over a decade, it's a very important slide. GDP per capita has nearly doubled from $400 per person to $800. GDP on purchasing power parity has increased more than double. International reserves have shot up 8 times. FDI has shot up 6 times. And exports of goods and services have shot up 5 times. So that's good news. India's stock exchanges are booming. I see a lot of high net worth individuals here. Please park a portion of your portfolio in Indian stocks. You'll thank me for it. I'll just charge 10% for this advice. Tomorrow's India. What's going to drive tomorrow's India? There are age demographics and income dynamics. And we have a diversified export basket based on both goods and services. We have a knowledge-driven economy plus also mass-produced exports. Please don't think India is just a service hub. India today has the potential to give a very good fight to China in terms of its cost management and in terms of high-end engineering. Manufacturing-led exports growth is a big opportunity. Please come to India, set up manufacturing in special economic zones. You don't have to pay duties and taxes, and use India as a manufacturing hub and export overseas. And the biggest difference, when you go to China, you don't have domestic market access. In India, you have a significant amount of domestic market access. It's much easier and simpler to sell in the Indian local market than in the Chinese local market. Demographic transformation, I want you to understand this very clearly. From 2001-2, here are the annual household income. The rich is above 1.1 lakh, $115,000. High income is $57,000 to $115,000. Consuming class, which is the middle class, is $23,000 to $57,000. And if you really see, in India, by 2009-10, there will be 500 million Indians with a household income of over $10,000 on purchasing power parity terms. And that's a huge consuming class. I want you to join the party and make investments. Abundant skilled labor. This was a study, and in terms of skilled labor, while US and India scored 7.2, 7.3, China scored a poor 4.3. And in terms of availability of qualified engineers, India clearly scored 8.9 out of 10, and China scored 3.9 out of 10. This was based on a 2003 survey. I don't think there would have been a very significant difference between then and now. Competitiveness of Indian manufacturing. See, 40% of Indian output is skill related, 24% is raw material related, and 23% is capital intensive. And agriculture based is 7%. But India is the lowest lowest cost farm gate producer of milk. New Zealand has tremendous things to offer in terms of dairy and food processing. I think we can try and create good partnerships. In dairy products, poultry and meat products, we have to grow exports significantly. You can come and make investments and get a part of that growth. In terms of skill intensive, we have to build an IT-like dominance in auto components, drugs and pharmaceuticals, etc. And ready-made garments, footwear, toys, sports goods. Anyway, we are doing catch-up with China and trying to ensure that we get a larger share of the world trade. What does the Deutsche Bank have to say about a growth forecast of the next 15 years? 2006 to 2020, Deutsche Bank says the world's fastest growing GDP will be India at 5.5. I don't agree with the estimate. India's GDP will grow at about 8 to 8.5% going forward. And Malaysia is expected to be the second fastest growing GDP, and China will probably be the third. Top 3 economies by GDP, this is a well-known Goldman Sachs BRICS report. India is expected to be number 3 in the world by 2050, probably by 2035. And here are a few countries: Germany, UK, Russia, Brazil, and Japan. You pile them up together, and if you have to believe Goldman Sachs, that will be the size of the Indian economy a few years down the line. Declining poverty, like I mentioned, poverty was 52%, now it is down to 26%. We have cut 30 percentage point in 3 years, and now we are running towards taking it to single digits. Of course, all this good news is there, but there are major challenges and constraints. Power, oil and gas, India is deficient. That's a major challenge. Employment growth for these millions of educated people who are coming into the job market, and the people who are in the rural areas whose aspirations are increasing thanks to the power of the media. How do we create jobs? Large infrastructure investments, agricultural growth and productivity. If New Zealand can help us in harnessing our agricultural resources better and raising productivity, we'll appreciate that. Primary education, given the size and width of the country, that's a crying need. Unfortunately, corporates cannot make enough investments given the magnitude. That's largely the government's call. Rural health is another big problem. India today is a very important destination in terms of medical tourism. But our medical facilities do not reach our poor villages. Social development with equity is a challenge that we are grappling with, and attracting large FDI for manufacturing-led export growth. This is just the kind of 10% power deficit is there. Those of you who are in the power sector, try and see if you can do something in terms of the India opportunity. Infrastructure, India is at an inflection point. Just to share with you, we are going to invest about $320 billion in the next 5 years in infrastructure. You see, if we were a country like Singapore, or if we were a country like Hong Kong, for us to create the challenge is very different. I mean, we need, like I'll come up in the next slide and you will see the magnitude of the challenge. But in utilities, we are going to spend a lot of this money, roads, railways, urban infrastructure over the next 5 years as a first tranche. Investment landscape, just to give you an idea, in aviation sector, there is going to be a tremendous investment that's going to happen. Delhi and Hyderabad airports, 8 greenfield projects, Bangalore, Chennai, Kolkata, and 35 non-metro airport development projects. Significant infrastructure. Telecom, energy, in all these areas are going to be billions and billions of dollars. I've just put a summary slide. $200 billion in the power sector, $22 billion in telecom, $30 billion on roads. So these are real opportunities. Companies that are willing to take a risk and come and be a part of the story are very welcome. Key opportunities: India can be the next manufacturing and services superpower. Of course, China will have its place, but India will be an alternate destination. I would recommend very strongly. I've had the occasion to speak in Germany at a symposium with about 1,000 European businessmen in September. Mr. Bill Clinton was a co-speaker. He spoke on the Clinton Global Initiative. Lord Chris Patton spoke on China, and General James Jones gave a NATO perspective. I spoke on the very same topic. Last month I was in Spain and I was part of the European Growth Summit, where I spoke on India and China, and I had called it Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and I had given the story there. Very clearly today, European companies, American companies don't want to put all their eggs in the China basket. They are very clear that making money in China in the domestic market is very difficult. And today, the alternative location for them clearly is India. Probably ASEAN, it could be Vietnam, it could be Malaysia, etc. If we all play our act together, I think we can be a very attractive source for FDI. Indian companies today, Tatas have acquired Chorus, Tatas have acquired Techly, Arcelor has been acquired by Lakshmi Mittal, Hindalco has acquired Novelis, which is an aluminium player, Suzlon has acquired Ray Power. So Indians are becoming multinationals. And these are all very large companies and high-profile takeovers that we are talking of. In my opinion, IT, tourism, infrastructure, BPO, technical services, food processing, retail and exports can be major growth drivers. I had the occasion to discuss with Madam Madeleine Albright and also Mr. Bill Clinton. Both of them had this to say: India will have a major leadership role globally, both economically and politically. Bajaj Allianz, 619 offices, 22,000 employees, combined $1 billion turnover last year. They are growing at about 70-80% per annum, probably $1.7-1.8 billion in 2006. This is just a couple of slides on how can overseas companies be successful in India. I am talking from the Allianz experience. Define targets, whether you want to do trading, outsourcing, offshoring or sourcing. Be clear on what you want to do. choose the right location, and then take a decision on whether you want to do it alone or with a partner. I would recommend that you do it with a partner with appropriate technical, financial, and very important, cultural due diligence. Companies that fail to do a cultural due diligence end up with disasters. Assess option of a limited joint venture and negotiate a detailed joint venture agreement. In my opinion, in India, these agreements are taken very, very seriously. Contrary to an opinion that was expressed from this podium earlier, in India, you enter into a deal, that deal is honored. We have a tradition of trust, and that's very important. Let employees of parent company and Indian employees partner, be prepared for Indian ground realities, and fortunately organizations like CII, FICCI, we are all there to help you. I am associated with the Confederation of Indian Industry, and there are tremendous amount of other success stories. Allianz, Siemens, SAP, Microsoft, LG, Samsung, Suzuki, all of them can share with you how they are doing it. Clearly, also allow and plan for some deficiencies. If power is an issue, look at a captive power plant, right from the word go, or alternate DG set availability. Bureaucracy, yes, there is red tapeism, but we are trying to dismantle it over a period of time. I can't say that there is a magic wand for that. Unfortunately, the bureaucracy is a British tradition which has been handed over to both you and us. So you know how to deal with bureaucracy, I don't have to teach you. Probably corruption is also something which the British taught us. I don't know. I'd just like to mention this. You see, in India, I cannot deny the existence of corruption, but I worked in two large Indian organizations, one of them for 17 years, another one for 8 years. In my entire career of 25 years, I have never had to bribe. And I'm saying it proudly in front of you. If you are willing to bribe, people will know how to take your wallet out of your pocket. But if you say it is a no-go, in India, corruption takes the form of speed money. You have a project to execute, you want to get off the ground in 3 months, or 2 months, or 1 month, then you have to grease your way through. If you're willing to wait for a month or 2 or 3 months, then it will get done if you know the bureaucracy and if you can influence it without resorting to monetary influence. Apart from that, empower Indian employees honestly, utilize the India opportunity. There are some government initiatives needed. We need to replace indirect taxes with the VAT, reduce import duties further, which has happened, reform labor laws, which are still archaic. Labor laws are from the 1880s or whatever, and you know we were not responsible for our country then. Kickstart special economic zone growth, increase foreign direct investment inflows, etc. The new giants, I just want to touch upon India and China briefly. Pharmaceuticals. A drug in India can cost as little as $100 million in terms of drug discovery, whereas it costs $1 billion or more in the US or Europe. Electronics, both India and China offer attractive options today. Services sector, in China is 41% of GDP, in India it's 60% of GDP. India and China together will be contributing to about 30% of the world GDP. And energy efficiency. This is an important concern that I want to share. China's energy use is 3.5 times more than the US per unit of production. India is 2.7 times more. See, of course, global warming is an issue. Of course, greenhouse gases is an issue. But the developed economies have a role to play in ensuring that the right technology is made available so that when these two economies gallop ahead, we do it with cleaner sources. Global carbon emissions, China is at 17%, India is at 5%. So I want to request you, please come and make investments in India. We are cleaner than China. Problems that can impact India's growth story, political will to hasten the reforms process, unbalanced growth. The poor masses have to see the benefits of reform. There has to be a percolation effect, health and environment, Indo-Pak relations. I mean, if tomorrow there is an Iran-like, let us say, radical Islamic regime in Pakistan, that's something which can be a cause of some destabilization, and agricultural productivity. India-New Zealand relationship, very briefly, there is a need for a long-term orientation. We Indians, we believe in the Buddha, we believe in yoga, we believe in the Gita, we believe in win-win. We believe for me to win, you have to win. For me to win, you don't have to lose. Increase the width and depth of engagement and interaction between the government, state associations, etc. Great opportunities in education and culture. If I can facilitate any university interactions, I'll be happy to play a role. New Zealand can invest in dairy technologies, food and meat processing industry. In India, we have a significant competitive advantage. Value-added exports of wood rather than logs for the construction industry, sawn timber, moldings is an important opportunity. Need for a quality free trade agreement within a reasonable time is important, and clean technologies for environment preservation. Tourism, we have a lot to learn from you, and tremendous amount of tourism infrastructure is needed. We also want to invite companies from New Zealand to participate in the infrastructure boom that I've painted already. And India can contribute towards building a knowledge economy, maybe software related skills as far as New Zealand is concerned. In conclusion, many New Zealand companies have been largely continent focused. Jobs need not leave New Zealand. If you have global ambitions, take advantage of the Asian and Indian opportunity. Your companies will become more successful and more high-end jobs can be created back home. The low-cost manufacturing, outsourcing of back-end activities, strategic component sourcing, R&D and design services are to be exploited. They are there, available at probably 1/5 the cost that you're incurring today. Local subsidiaries in Asia can also be listed in the local market. I've done a study. While the DAX over 5 years had moved by about 20%, the DAX 15, which are 15 German companies listed in the Indian stock market, grew by 650% in terms of their market capitalization. So if you make investments in a market where there is a lot of FII money coming, your investments will grow. And these markets will see an unprecedented boom. It makes commercial sense to be a part of the Asia story, to be a part of the China story. In 1994, the economist called India a caged tiger. Today, the Indian tiger is truly uncaged and is ready for the future. What I want to say towards the end, Norera, Tenakoto, Tenakoto, Tenatato, Tatova. Thank you very much.
This program was sponsored by Auckland City Council. 56,827. The number of businesses in Auckland City. That's 15% of all New Zealand businesses.